In this lecture, we're going to talk about lifestyle. Now, lifestyle refers to how people live and includes the activities that people engage in, things that interest them, and the opinions they hold. Perhaps a simpler way to understand lifestyle is to say it's a study of how people live, spend their money, and allocate their time. This differs from personality in that one's personality is kind of an internal perspective that really examines how people think, feel, and perceive. Now, when researching this part of the lecture, I came across the aspect of esports. And esports is basically a form of competition involving video games. Esports has grown considerably in the past decade, and the sport involves organized multiplayer video game competitions where players compete head-to-head in real-time strategy-type fighting, or first-person shooter games, or multiplayer online battle arenas, or MOBA, where viewers watch players compete. Basically, viewers can watch people compete for titles and prize money. Now, viewers can observe these matches using Twitch TV, which was acquired by Amazon for $1 billion. Amazing. The interest has grown so much in esports that the Olympics have even begun to notice and are said to be considering adding esport as an official event in the future. Now, if you look at it, we're not going to capture any aspect about esports or their players or people that are interested in it from demographics. It's going to be about looking at their lifestyle, about their activities, their interests, and their opinions. Now, the aspect of lifestyle, again, as I said, talks about the activities that people engage in, the interests that they hold, and the opinions that they hold as well. And there are going to be some connection between all of them. For example, we have very different lifestyles. People have different lifestyles. You have people that are, eat very healthy and live a very healthy life. You have those that do drugs and alcohol. You have people that like to, adorn their bodies with tattoo or other type of accoutrements. But if you look at it, their interest and their activities and their opinions are all going to be similar. I would assume that somebody that drinks a lot of alcohol or does a lot of drugs is probably not going to be answering very high on the aspect of eating healthy or healthy food or things like this. So there are some connections between our lifestyle and our activities, interests, and opinions. To better understand people, we dive into the area of psychographics. Now, psychographics are basically a different way of measuring and understanding people. Okay, that's kind of saying the same thing, but you'll get the point. For example, if we look at somebody's personality, we can ask them, are you an outdoor type person? Well, they may say that they are high and they're an outdoor type person. But let's look at their lifestyle. We can ask them, how much time do you actually spend outdoors? So there are differences between somebody's personality and somebody's lifestyle. And to measure this, we basically look at, as I said, the AIO, activity, interest, and opinions that they hold. Now, AIO statements basically describe the lifestyle of consumers by identifying their activities and interests and opinions. Now, activity questions focus on what consumers do, what they buy, and how they spend their time. Interest questions, on the other hand, focus on their preferences and priorities, while opinion questions ask for a consumer's view and feeling on a variety of issues. The questions that are asked, though, will vary based on the researcher, the client or company that they work for, and what is of interest to them. Some questions may be very specific, such as, when I eat grape nut cereal, it makes me feel healthy. Or it could be very generic, such as, I think cities are where the action is. Next, let's look at some of the example questions that they have out there. Here are some typical activity questions that could be asked. What outdoor sports do you participate in at least twice a month? How many books do you read in a year? Have you gone outside the United States for a vacation? How many clubs do you belong? And how often do you visit shopping malls? Got a typo there, don't I? Interest questions, on the other hand, are going to ask things like, in which of the following are you most interested? Sports, church, or work? How important is it for you to try new foods? How important is it to you to get ahead in life? And would you rather spend 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon with your wife or in a boat fishing alone? Opinion questions can basically run the gambit of whatever you're interested in. For example, you could ask a question like, the Russian people are just like us. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. Women should have free choice regarding their own bodies. Educators are paid too much money. CBS Inc. is run by East Coast liberals. We must be prepared for nuclear war. Now, the questions you're going to put together are going to depend on what you're trying to study. Some of these, have very little to do with each other, but again, you start to put together questions that are a collection of opinions in a certain area, you start to get a picture of what people think. One way to see the value of psychographics is to look at what Cadillac did with their Escalade brand. They have an SUV targeting one group and a pickup truck targeting another. Owners of each of these could live right next to each other, but they have different needs, different activities, interests, and opinions. For example, the Escalade buyers for the SUV are typically about 50 years old, have a Harvard MBA, are a member of a golf club, and they like to keep in contact with their college friends. The Escalade pickup truck owner, on the other hand, is about 5 years younger, and they might have attended college. They love to hunt, fish, and go camping, but they keep in contact with their high school friends. Very different group, but again, the same brand being targeted to two different segments based on not demographic profiles, but based on psychographic profiles. Now, there are a lot of ways to do a psychographic analysis of a market. You can use a lifestyle profile that basically looks for items that differentiate between users and non-users of a product. You can do a product-specific profile that identifies a target group and then profiles those consumers on product-relevant dimensions. The general lifestyle segmentation kind of places a large sample of respondents into homogeneous groups based on their similarities of their overall preference for a type of product. And a product-specific segmentation study, you can tailor the questions to a very product-specific category. So again, it all depends on what you're wanting to do, and whatever it is, understanding that and then developing a profile through a series of questions is going to help you have the information that you need about your market segment. Now, if we want to do a comprehensive view of somebody's life or the lifestyle dimensions of consumers, we can go after many different areas. For example, with activities, we can look at how their work, their hobbies, social events, entertainment, their community involvement, shopping, sports, all of these different things. Interest, on the other hand, we can look at their family, their home, job, community, recreation, food they eat, the media they consume, their achievements in their life. All of these different things allow us to create a much clearer picture of who our customers or our potential customers are. Now, several years ago, the trade publication Ad Age basically did a psychographic profile, and then they kind of looked at and put together a nice little article that talked about what your taste in brew says about you. So let's look at what your preference in beer tells us about people. Starting with Budweiser, the research basically found that drinkers of Budweiser, or those that preferred Budweiser, were sensible, grounded, and practical. They were highly focused, but didn't like authority. However, they were heavily union. They were emotionally steady. They were spontaneous, don't plan ahead. They drive a truck, select a credit card with flexible payment plans, and are more likely to use breath-freshening products. I'm not sure what that says about Budweiser as a beer, but That's just what the findings show. Bud Light drinkers, on the other hand, were lacking in carefulness. They were grounded but respect authority. They were risk seekers. They accept others, easy to get along with, heavy lottery players, and they're less likely to purchase organic products. Michelob Ultra drinkers, on the other hand, rate themselves high in superiority. They care what others think of them, and they kind of want to appear perfect. They're take charge types, they're very opinionated and confrontational, which might lead to why they're heavy buyers of life insurance. And they do make sustainability a priority. Now keep in mind, all of these are self-reported. But again, as you start to put it together, you start to see a pattern. Now, Corona drinkers, they kind of have the where's the party attitude. They're busy and energetic, they're extroverted, they're people, they're altruistic, think of themselves as giving and warm, buy recycled products, and own 3 or more flat-screen TVs. Now, I hate to admit that I tried to use this study to convince my wife that we needed 2 more flat-screen TVs, because I love Corona. She wasn't buying, so I didn't buy either. Heineken drinkers, on the other hand, are posers. They believe they are exceptional. They score very low on modesty, high on self-esteem, and they love brand badges, hence the green bottle. You typically can't get it away from them because they like people to see that they're drinking Heineken. They are attracted to luxury products, love being the center of attention, carry the American Express card, and one of the most early adopters of new technology, and they tend to drive sports cars. So again, we're looking at their activities, their interests, and their opinions. Blue Moon drinkers are socially liberal. They go totally against convention. They hate moral authority, use sarcasm and snide remarks to get their point across, drive hybrid cars, they're Apple Mac users, and they buy 5 or more pair of sneakers in a year. But they're likely not to be registered to vote. But think about that, sneakers a year. How many of you buy 5 pair of tennis shoes, sneakers, or kicks, or whatever you want to call them today? A year. That's an amazing number. And I guess some people like to collect them and like to, whatever outfit goes with a different pair of shoes. I'm not sure. You know, I've got 1 pair. But then again, I don't drink Blue Moon. And finally, we're going to look at craft brews. Okay? The last beer, basically they spend time thinking about beer. They're very open-minded, seek out new experiences. They're intellectually curious. They have a lower sense of responsibility. Don't really stress deadlines. Kind of have a happy-go-lucky attitude. They buy organic products, and they're fans of the show, The Office. You know, a lot of this makes sense. If you're into craft brews, you do spend a lot of time, I guess, thinking about beer. Now, there are many different ways that we can look and study psychographics. A couple of them, we'll look at here that kind of tend to go against each other to some degree. If you look at PRISM, which basically looks at geodemographics, which they basically argue that birds of a feather flock together, that people in one neighborhood are going to be very similar from each other. As a whole, I think that's probably true. Especially that's true from a demographic profile, because people that live in a similar neighborhood probably make a certain type of income, probably have a certain level of education and things like this. However, it doesn't always hold true. On the other hand, we have VALS, which basically looks at the values and lifestyles that somebody has, and it basically measures your values against your lifestyle and kind of gives you a profile of who you are. You don't have to, but if you're interested, you can take the VALS survey. It's only, I think, 27 questions now. They've got it narrowed down so well. Used to be over 50, I believe. But if you want to do a search for, I think it's VALS 2 now, so just do a search online for it. Take it. It might give you some insight into who you are. But these are all different ways that we can start to understand the differences between people based on what they do. So the last concept for this week is basically looking at our self-concept. And again, this goes back a little bit to last week's lecture, but I wanted to bring it in here. Here we're looking at basically our self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. There's also the aspect today of body esteem, about how we feel about our body, about how we look. Now, self-esteem, body esteem do tend to correlate highly with each other, but not all the time. We also have people doing a lot of things to their body with modifications, body piercings, body tattoos. You know, one of the interesting things that I found was that there was this Chinese young lady that was 15, and she convinced her father to spend about $90,000, 500,000 RMB, to make her look like Barbie. And as you can see by the picture, I guess that's pretty close. But another one, there was a woman in England that spent over $800,000 on plastic surgery to make her look like Barbie. Not sure where this is coming from, but I guess that helps people's something. I guess their self-esteem. Who knows? So, all right. So, let's talk about what we have for this week. So this week you have a quiz. It's up and ready. You have your second exam covering lecture 5, 6, 7, and 8, I believe. You have a homework for brand personality, and you should also be continuing to look at your project with your group. Some of you are, look like to be on track. Others a little bit far behind, I would think. So you might want to catch up and get onto that as quickly as possible because the semester is, half over, it seems. Till next week. Enjoy.